heal. Jai Jai Nityananda Dvaita Gauranga. Jai Jai Nityananda Dvaita Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga. Jai Jai Nityananda Dvaita Gauranga. Jai Jai Nityananda Dvaita Gauranga. Jai Jai Jasodanandana Shachi Sutta Gaurachandra. Jai Jai Rahini Nandana Balarama Nityananda. Jai Jai Mahavishnu Avatar Shri Advaita Chandra. Jai Jai Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Khandavasi Narahari Murari Mukunda. Jai Jai Swarup Rupa Sanatana Rai Ramananda. Jai Jai Uriya Gauriya Jata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Ayachana Havena Jata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Tomra sabai mili koro doya ami ati manda jeno akur prane gaite pari anitai gauranga gai jeno anitai gauranga janme janme anitai gauranga bahutuli anitai gauranga neche neche anitai gauranga. Jai Jai Nityananda Dvaita Gauranga. Jai Jai Nityananda Dvaita Gauranga. Srishtham amanumapi Shachiputram atra swarupam Rupam tasyagrajam urpurim maturim goshtavartim Radha Kundam Girivaram Aho Radhika Madhvasha Prapto Yasya Prasita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi. Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Braja Vallabha Pahimam Yasya Brahmeti Sangyam Kvachirapi Nigame Yati Chinmatra Satta Yang Shoyasyang Shakai Swai Vibhavati Vashayan Eva Maya Pumanscha Ekam Yasya Eva Rupam Vilasati Parama Vyomni Narayanakyam Sasri Krishno Vidhattam Swayamiha Bhagavan Prema Tatpada Bhajan gaurī-śyāmau Jala Viramalaya Lakshna Vilasad-ubhaya Nityanti Virasheshamadana Kala Vaidaghyati Dhatmavi Anyonya Priyata Parimala Stonamon Vadabhi Sada Radha Madhava Madhuri Giravita Chittam Mama Kramyatam Guru Shastram Shraddha Ruchir Anugati Siddhir Iti me Yadetanme Rajat Yasyat Yadyoha Charana Kamaloha Rajatiyayo Prema Madhvikena Taralita Snapitan Snapitan Netra Yugalo I knew I wouldn't make it. I had no faith. I know that Ali viparītau prabalita samo anandamalokita pratyāsaṁ sumanah palodaya vidho samodamamodita Vrindaranya bhuvi prakasha madhura sarvatishayi sriya Radha madhavayoh pramodayatu mam ulalasa kalpa drumaha. That was good. I'll do that one again. That one was really good. Om Adi vidhi paripalita prabalita sanandamalokita pratyasang sumana palodhaya vido samodamamodita Vrindaranya bhuvi prakasha madhura sarvati sai sriya Radha Madhavayo pramodayatu mam ulalasa kalpadrumah Radha Madhavayo pramodayatu mam ulalasa kalpadrumah Radha Madhavayo pramodayatu mam ulalasa kalpadrumah. So those were the 4 verses. Now I talked about that. I don't know where all this stuff is going. I'm going to put this on YouTube so you can follow it there. But I'm going to do these every day. I'm going to do the kirtan and I'm going to do the Mangalacharana. But now I'm considering whether to do this part of the Mangalacharana because this is the second half of my Mangalacharana. So in the talk I gave yesterday, which is totally, everything just simply flowing from the top of my head. But anyhow, I was talking about my experience with Gopala-campu a little bit. And so we've gone through, so it is my considered opinion that the Gopala-campu comes after the Sandarbhas. So what is the message of the Gopala-campu? So the Gopala-campu is kind of, because he's trying to accommodate all the rasas. So he has to separate the childhood rasas from because it has a different audience. It's not so good to talk about Radha and Krishna and the way they were feeling for each other and the way they were attracted to each other. You don't talk about these things in front of your parents. So that's why they had to have a special separate group. And anyway, it comes later on in the 15th chapter of the Purva-campu. That's when the adolescent leelas begin. So that's where Krishna, the gopis and all that stuff, it starts there. So there's a Mangalacharana there. So that Mangalacharana, I think, is very indicative of really where Jiva Goswami is going with the entire Gopala-campu. So I want to keep that in mind also as we do the Priti Sandarbha. Why, I don't know, but I think it's just a question of being in the right frame of mind to have a kind of a picture of Jiva Goswami, the man who is writing this text, which, however you measure it on the firmament of Indian thought and so on, is certainly a giant in our tradition. And so, Jiva Goswami is opening to us not only the doors of the Bhagavatam, but he's also opening us to opening the doors to Rupa Goswami and to the method of bhajan that was given by Rupa Goswami and the method of bhajan that was given by Raghunatha Das Goswami. The method of bhajan, that means to be constantly fixed in the mood of Madhura Rasa with Radha and Krishna. That this was the goal that was to be achieved. So, I'm going to do these 3 verses now. And I do have them on, so I should do a screen share here too, but I'm afraid now that I don't have the proper document open. This is a little bit complicated here for a moment. And I thought I had prepared this properly. Oh Lord, not again. Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Govinda Radhe, Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Govinda Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe. Aha, here it is. Sorry to take all this time, but I do feel hopeless. I should get, of course, an army of servants to do these things for me. Righto. So where are we here? Okay, let me make the screen a little bigger. And let's put this on properly here. So view. Well, let's do 200. Okay, let's do okay. That's good. All right. So, all right, let's get this show on the road here. Let me make sure that I have it. No, it's not being. So let me get this, make sure. Okay, here I'm going. Sharing the screen, my lords. And here we go. All right. Excuse my momentary incompetence and unpreparedness. All right, Gopala-campu, Mangalacharana. So it's 3 verses. All right, so this is all I'm going to do today. But these are really what you call aswadya. So as I was mentioning before, you have these lyrical meters. So of course the Gopala-campu is full of them, because in Gopala-campu there's more is being shown. Just a second here. I had a little, my camera fell over. Hang on a second. Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Jai Shri Radhe. Radhe Radhe Radhe, Govinda Radhe. I have a camera that's almost impossible to adjust right now. I'm far enough away that it's a big pain in the butt. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. All right, so now we're at the Mangalacharana for the Gopala-campu, the section on Madhura Rasa. All right, so there's 3 verses. The situation is a little bit like this. Try to understand. It's a very, very sophisticated understanding that Jiva Goswami has, because he is explaining the concept of rasa. All right, so he's explaining the whole concept of rasa by presenting things in a particular way. Radha and Krishna are in the Nitya Lila, but Snigdha Kanta and Madhu Kanta, they're going to come and they're going to tell the story of the Prakat Lila. So it's very strange. Well, maybe it's because in the Prakat Lila, nothing really is happening so much. No demons, no, no worlds to conquer, no demon kings to remove the burden of the earth, and so on and so forth. All those things were no longer there. So pretty dull place. So when they will go for entertainment, it's just like people sitting in their, okay, I hope this example will get back to people and they'll think, but they're, after having achieved love, at the end of the love story, right? You have the classical love story. There's some, overcoming the obstacles. And then Radha and Krishna are together. Finally, this is what Jiva Goswami wants to bring us to the point where, yes, that Radha's desire to be with Krishna, that Krishna's desire to be with Radha must be eternally fulfilled. So this is what's going on. So Jiva Goswami is a defender. He's a defender of the Nitya Swakiya. But here, let's just see what he's doing. This is from the point of view of Tattva now. The reason that Jiva Goswami is Nitya Swakiya is because of the Tattva. So the Tattva is there. The Radharani is inseparable from Krishna. So how can she be Parakiya? Even if you say that for the sake of Leela, she's Parakiya, she's still Swakiya in terms of her Swarup. So it's a difficult thing to sell, really, the whole Parakiya concept. And even if you accept the Parakiya concept from the point of view of Tattva, Radharani still remains eternally Swakiya. She can't be anything else. That's why Kaviraj Goswami, he says although she exceeds all holy women in pativratyam, in her dedication to her husband, nevertheless, she has become famous as an adulteress. Right? This is how Kaviraj Goswami, there are 3 arrows that pierce my heart. And the first one of those is that though Radharani is a pativrata shiromani, she is the queen, she is the crest jewel, she is the topmost faithful, devoted wife. Still, everyone treats her as an adulteress. So that's a shaila. So that's Kaviraj Goswami is also saying, so that even if you accept the Parakiya rasa, still, you know that there's that's external. Internally, Swakiya is always going to be there. As a matter of fact, Parakiya itself has no meaning unless there's an inner Swakiya, right? There's no prema if there's no Swakiya. If you don't say that, because Swakiyata and Mamata really have the same meaning. Swakiya or Sviya, one's own, right? So when you make someone your own, and you give yourself totally so that you become one with that person, right? Sviya. Mamata, I'm just going through the Priti Sandarbha on this point. So in Priti Sandarbha, he's talking about exactly that. He's talking about the relationship between mamata. So mamata is the word, there's a stage in love where you develop a certain attachment. So this word mamata is a bit hard to pin down. It means minus, but what does that mean, minus? My-ness, like mama, my, and mamata or mamatva, those all mean myness. So it's a sense of possessiveness. That's really what the probably the most correct translation would be, possessiveness. But it's used not well. It's used in a positive way and in a negative way, as you can imagine. But the positive way really outweighs the negative way. So when he's talking about love, Jiva Goswami says that when you establish a relationship with somebody, when the depth or the strength of your love is a matter of the increasing amount of mamata. The more a sense of, so the idea there is, I think, that the mamata means that you become intertwined with that person in a particular relationship, and you identify yourself with that relationship. And the extent to which you love somebody is the extent to which you are defined by that relationship. So anyway, to get back to the Mangalacharana, so here now we have Jiva Goswami's coming into the, so I really like these three verses quite a bit. So these are, so the situation again, Snigdha-kanta and Madhu-kanta are two performers. They're disciples of Narada Muni, and they have they have a band, right? They have a drummer and maybe a flute player or somebody playing cymbals, and probably good, maybe chorus, a couple of people in the chorus. So they're going to sing. So they have verses. They're going to sing, and then they're going to tell stories. And they're going to tell stories in mixture prose and sometimes in verse, like that. It's an entertainment that's going on. And it's supposed to bring rasa. So this is what Snigdha-kanta and Madhu-kanta do. So I was saying that Radha and Krishna are there. I balked, didn't I? I was afraid to say it. In a film, you have a great, passionate love story, right? And I think of Crocodile Dundee, running across the top of a train or across the top of a crowd or whatever it is like that. I think in Hollywood, they must have tried most, extravagant, ridiculous, stupid, nonsensical ways that lovers are reunited after many, many turmoils and difficulties. They become a farce, right? They become a mockery of themselves. But that's the idea. So that the rasa is there in a romance. The idea is that through hardships, the lover and the beloved are reunited, right? You don't end a story in misery, for God's sakes. The Radha Bhagavatam ends with Radha and Krishna still separated, impossibly separated. Krishna can never go back to being a cowherd. That's the way of the world. The gopis can never become queens in Dwarka. That's not the way of the world. They're going to go back to their own homes, and, their sadness will only have increased 100,000-fold for what's gone, for what can never be recuperated. The time flows by mercilessly, even when Krishna Lila is going on. But what happens there is that Krishna promises the gopis in Kurukshetra that you're through this love that you have for me in separation, you will get me in the end. Right? I'm yours. Don't worry about anything. Right? But for that, a whole theory and philosophy of separation has had to be developed. But the inner part of separation is always union. There can be no separation without union. And ideally, separation should only be there to serve to enhance the union. From the point of view of rasa, I don't think that you would finish on vipralamba. You have to finish on, that's why they give it in that order, right? So you have samriddhiman sambhog. That's where the story ends, my friend. You have 4 kinds of separation, 4 kinds of union, and that's the story of love. That's the glory of love, right? So you have purvarag, you have sankshipta sambhog, and then you have adura pravasa, and you have sankirtan sambhog. And then you have mana, and after that you have, that's the sankshipta sambhog. And then you have dura pravasa, and after dura pravasa you have samriddhiman sambhog. So the story goes that you have purvarag, the boy and girl fall in love. Okay, step 1. And they meet and they get together. But even after they've gotten together, then there's still going to be daily separation. For one reason or another. If it's parakiya, swakiya, it doesn't matter. If it's swakiya, the husband still has to go out into the forest or do whatever he does. And if he's parakiya, then also he still has to go and do what he does. The woman also has to do what she does. And so then that's and then the next one after that is is man. So man is something that can happen everywhere. It's a special characteristic of Madhura Rasa. And then the last one is dura pravasa. So dura pravasa is, of course, what happens when Krishna leaves and goes to Mathura. So dura pravasa means long-term separation. So long-term separation has always been fascinating for people in Europe also, and in India also, about long-term separation, love and long-term separation. What happens? Is love strong enough to withstand long separation? So now here we have, all right, let's just do it, okay? So this one here, this is in also the Shikarini Mizrami. So we encountered Shikarini already before. Imau gaurī-śyāmau manasi viparītau bahir sphurat-tat-tad-vastrāv iti budha-janair niścitam idam. Accha-premā vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā dadhan mūrti-bhāvaṁ pṛthag āvirudabhūt. Imau gaurī-śyāmau manasi viparītau bahir sphurat-tat-tad-vastrāv iti budha-janair niścitam idam. Accha-premā vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā dadhan mūrti-bhāvaṁ pṛthag āvirudabhūt. So this is the let it be said. This is a very nice classical statement of the unity and indifference of Radha and Krishna. So for Radha and Krishna, the inner and outer universes are all Radha and Krishna Maya. Now this is something that we may, think good or bad of. I think that love is going out of fashion somewhat. The idea of becoming one soul people have now relegated this to the world of some, childish fantasies. This idea of trying to be one soul with another woman, starts to get a little bit weird. The woman should be given equal identity, right? A separate and equal identity. And this idea of becoming totally one, this is just another tool of patriarchal domination. All these things may be true, but there is a certain attractiveness that is there. And why is that attractiveness there? The attractiveness is there because of this mystic desire for unity. Now, there's so much to be said about individualism and this desire for a kind of absolute union with creation and with the divine being, with the absolute truth, to somehow or another be, to float in that ocean of peace and understanding. So this is the image that we get. Here it's Snigdha-kanta and Madhu-kanta, right? So they're talking, Radha and Krishna are directly present there in front of them. So they say imau here in front of us. Imau gaurī-śyāmau. So gaurī-śyāmau, I think we saw that already. Gaurī-śyāmau āvirudabhūt. Vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā. So there it was there. The previous verse also was talking about this madhuri, that Radha and Krishna's madhuri, that this took on the color of one black and white. Black and white or gold and dark blue. It depends on how you want to think about it. But basically, to say Gauri and Shyama, this is a kind of a strong contrast that wants to be shown. That Krishna is black and Radha is white. So it's a real coincidentia oppositorum. It's more than just that they are male and female. There's something else that goes on. He is black and she is white. Whatever that means. Let's not give it too much meaning, because Krishna means the all-attractive one. We have so much to go on about Krishna. Right? What the meanings are of their names, Radha and Krishna. But here it's just been brought down to something subliminal, right? Symbolic, black and white. Yin and yang, I think, would do me more favors, but they've reversed in reverse order there in terms of color, in terms of what yin and yang are, feminine and masculine colors. Anyhow, let's return to the verse and just let's relish. Imau gaurī-śyāmau. Right, so these two, imau, these two, gaurī-śyāmau, a dvandva samasa, gaurī-śyāmau, there are two of them. Imau gaurī-śyāmau manasi viparītau. All right, so the first thing he says, this is Gauri and Shyama here. But manasi viparītau, that means that externally, he who is now Krishna, internally is actually Gauri. And she who is now Gauri, that actually internally she is Krishna. How do you know this? Bahir sphurat-tat-tad-vastrāv. And this is revealed externally by their clothing, because Krishna wears a yellow dhoti. So there's our mystery of the colors, gaurī-śyāma. That golden dress that he wears. That Nava Natavara, that dancing cowherd decorated with forest flowers and forest colors, the colored different kinds of earth that they found on the ground, painted on their face. And of course, you love to paint it on Krishna's face because he's so black. So you put a little bit of the white clay, some tilak, you get some white clay and you put it on his face. And sometimes there's red clay. So all those things are going on. So bahirapi sphurat-tat-tad-vastrāv. So externally they're wearing the clothing. Radharani wears a blue cloth around her upper body. Sometimes she wears a blue sari. So blue is her preferred color. Dark blue, imagine. So she wraps herself in that dark blue cloth because that reminds her of Krishna. And so Krishna wears his cloth as a revealing his inner mood. He doesn't want to keep that a secret. Radha also doesn't want to keep a secret that what she's thinking inside. She wants the whole world to know, but of course she's limited. Nevertheless, both of them, in a way, they know the secret of revealing their souls by their dress. And so Krishna is wearing a golden dress to symbolize Radha. So he'll think of Radha. And Radha wears a dark blue night sky sari or a orani, an upper shawl. And that's what she's using. It reminds her of Krishna. So that's it. So on the external, so Gaurī and Śyāma. Krishna is Śyāma, Radha is Gaurī. External, that's the color of their skin. But internally, Radha is always thinking of Krishna. Krishna is always thinking of Radha. So internally, they are the opposite. Krishna is Gaurī. Radha is Krishna. Krishnamaya. She thinks of nothing but Krishna. She's emptied herself out and given herself to thinking of Krishna. And Krishna also to taste this, because this is the meaning of love, right? To just give yourself over to that other person. So there they are. Radha and Krishna are the perfect symbol of love. So imau gaurī-śyāmau manasi viparītau bahir sphurat-tat-tad-vastrāv iti budha-janair niścitam idam. So there he's saying, this is not just me, I'm not just saying this. This is not something interesting here, but he wants to give somebody else as the authority. So he says, intelligent people have judged this to be so. Now, accha-premā, vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā. Accha-premā, vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā. Dadhan mūrti-bhāvaṁ pṛthag āvirudabhūt. Accha-premā vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā. Dadhan mūrti-bhāvaṁ pṛthag āvirudabhūt. So here's interesting. Accha-premā. So now look, he's not even, this is so interesting from the point of view of theology and all this argumentation that we have about mayavad, and so on. This is accha-premā is some unknown substance called prema. Accha-premā, vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā, which is manifesting itself in these two forms, in these two sphurtis, in these two manifestations. And these two manifestations have taken a form. And this form is both separate and non-separate. And it has appeared here before us, right? So that love, so it's the love now is the subject of this sentence. Accha-premā āvirudabhūt. This is what they are saying. They've seen Radha and Krishna standing here in front of them. And they look at the sweetness and beauty of Radha and Krishna's form. Now, eternally united in the Nitya Lila. And they say that this dual, Radha and Krishna, is actually sakopya, it is pure love itself. Now he's talking about something formless, right? Prema is formless, right? Ananga, Kamadev. So he says it's a kopya cha, and also the use of the word accha. The accha, spotless, pure. Sakopya accha-premā vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā. So this prema is established, showing its pastimes, vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā, in these two explosions of meaning. A sphurti. A sphurti has too many meanings, but the basic idea is it's an explosion of light. So it's like it can be like an experience. It's a sphurti. Suddenly you become filled with a joyful and faith. Your faith is restored. Your heart feels joy. This is all part of what a sphurti is like. So the best sphurti, of course, is when you see your beloved. For a devotee, the best moment for a sphurti is to see Krishna and Radha. All right, so the whole verse. Imau gaurī-śyāmau manasi viparītau bahir sphurat-tat-tad-vastrāv iti budha-janair niścitam idam. Accha-premā vilasad-ubhaya-sphūrtikatayā dadhan mūrti-bhāvaṁ pṛthag āvirudabhūt. What do we have here? Let's see what we say. What does the translation say? Wise persons have determined that though these two are of black and golden hue, in their minds they are of the opposite colors. As externally, so too are their clothes. This is a pure, unblemished love become incarnate, taking on this form with a dual manifestation, which is both divided and a unity. Jiva Goswami, Achintya Veda Veda Kijay. Right? So this is what he is. The philosopher and Jiva Goswami wants us to understand that if we want to understand Achintya Bheda Bheda, we need to understand Radha and Krishna. And we need to understand how And the way he puts it, right? He puts it in a way that, you know, that the Vaishnava interpreter who has a little bit of a problem with, because the subject is prema. It's some prema. Sakopya accha-premā. It's the prema that becomes Radha and Krishna. That the prema is the substance, and Radha and Krishna are the manifestations thereof. So he's put it in a very real way. I believe he has put prema above Radha and Krishna. In a sense, I think there's some justification for it. One of his favorite verses that he's quoted several times, it actually comes from Madhvacharya, which says that Bhaktireva nayati, Bhaktirenam darshayati, Bhaktirenam nayati, Bhakti vashah purusha, Bhaktireva bhūyasi. Bhaktireva bhūyasi says that bhakti dominates. Bhakti is what the Krishna gives himself over to bhakti. So then bhakti must be something greater than Krishna even. But of course, how you can separate, that's the whole point. The whole point is you can talk like that, but in reality, how can you separate the two? At any rate, wise persons have determined that though these two are of a black and golden hue, in their minds they are of the opposite colors. As externally, so too are their clothes. This is a pure, unblemished love become incarnate, taking on this form with a dual manifestation, which is both divided and a unity. All right, now we go on to verse number 2 without any further ado. All right, so now this one here is interesting, and I think I give all the pramanas below. This just shows a bit, it's not just Jiva Goswami's genius that attracts me to him. But of course, his knowledge is vast. And so he can compress many things, many ideas into a short space. So look what he says here. This is the glorification now of Radha. This one is Shardula Vikririta, if I'm not mistaken. Shri Rasam Natulam Vibharti Nitaram Ityudhava Kirtayan Yasam Anghirajo Nanam Harina Yasvena Tuyo Mataha Tasam Tat Priyata Sudhakaratanum Vishwakchakoraite Nane Nanugatam Samasta Mahitam Vandamahe Radhikam Sri Rasam Natulam Vibharti Nitaram Ityudhava Kirtayan Yasam Anghirajo Nanama Harina Yasvena Tulyo Mataha Tasam Tat Priyata Sudhakaratanum Vishwakchakoraite Nane Nanugatang Samastamahitam Vandamahe Radhikam. So, Shrir Asam Natulam Vibharti Nitaram. So this is one of these kind of chain verses. One thing leads to another, right? So, Shrir Asam Natulam Vibharti Nitaram Ityuddhava Kirtayan. So, Uddhava Kirtayan. So, what did Uddhava say? So, in his prayers to the gopis, 47th chapter of the 10th canto, there, Uddhava, he says that Shrir Asam, Asam meaning who? He'll tell you in the next line. He means the gopis. So Shri Lakshmi Devi, Asam Natulam Vibharti. So Tulam here, it means equal. Right? So she doesn't carry their equal. So I mean, this is a particular way of expressing the idea of not being her equal. Right? So Shri Asam Natulam Vibharti. So Shri cannot carry their weight. You would put it like that way. On the scale, Shri does not equal the gopis. Shrir Asam Natulam Vibharti Nitaram. So Nitaram, making that even stronger. So what does he say after that? Iti Uddhava Kirtayan. So Nitaram could go either way. Nitaram could go with Kirtayan. But this is Uddhava didn't say this. Uddhava said this. He did say this. He says this in his prayers, right? Nayamango Sri. Nayamango Sri. It goes on. Aha. Now you see some verses, I haven't been reciting these verses for some time, and so obviously I've completely forgotten them. But I'm sure it's written out and down below anyway. So we will go and look at it in a moment if we have time. All right, so he goes on. So here, Sri Rasam Natulam Vibharti Nitaram Ityuddhava Kirtayan Yasam. So here Yasam is continuing on with this Asam, so of these. So now he's saying something more about them, more about the gopis. So Yasam Angri Rajo Nanama Hadina Yaha Svena Tulyo Mataha. So now this is still Uddhava. So Uddhava, he bowed down to the lotus dust, to the dust of the gopis' lotus feet. Yasam Angri Rajo. Vande Nand. This one I think I won't forget. Vande Nanda Vrajastrinam Padarenum Avikshnasa Yasam Hari Katodgitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam. So that was the verse that Uddhava spoke about the gopis. So what else? So he says Yasam. So now Tasam. All right, after glorifying these Asam and Yasam, meaning the gopis, right? After glorifying them. So it wasn't just going here. Harina Yaksvena Tulyo Mataha. There's a little bit more to that. First of all, he's saying, who is this Uddhava? So who cares what Uddhava says? Well, Uddhava, Krishna himself says that Uddhava is my equal. Uddhava, he says himself, is my equal. He says this a couple of times, actually, in the Bhagavatam. That pramana will be given just on this page. So, Tasam tat priyata. So now those gopis, right? Those gopis who are glorified by a personage of the high esteem that we have for Uddhava, and who says that Shri, the goddess of fortune herself, is not the equal of the gopis. And Uddhava, who although he was the associate, direct associate of Krishna in Dwarka, he himself bowed down and prayed to have the dust of the gopis' lotus feet. All right, so now these gopis, what about them? Tasam, of them, of those gopis. Tat priyata sudhakaratanum vishwak chakoraite nanena anugata samasta mahita vandamahe radhikam. So tasam tat priyata. So now he's going on saying, so now you take all this love that the gopis have for Krishna, right? And all that love is like ambrosia. And that ambrosia is like more like the ambrosia, it's like the moon, Sudhakara. So Sudhakara means the moon, because the moon, it says that the rays of the moon are full of life-giving ambrosia. So here, tat priyata sudhakara tanum. So their love is like, has the body of the moon, right? And he, Vishwak Chakoraitena, Anena. So here Anena means Krishna. Anena, this one here, Krishna, he's pointing to Krishna. So Anena, just like we had imau, gaurī-śyāmau. So here Anena, he's pointing to Krishna. So Anena, he is what? He is Chakoraite, Vishwak Chakoraite. So just like the chakora bird subsides on those nectar rays from the moon and refuses all other nourishment, right? This is the chakoras and the chatakas. We have all these examples in the Indian literature, in the Puranas and so on, of people who are dedicated to their goal and who achieve their goal somehow in whatever particular dharma they happen to follow, that they go to the limits of their dharma through their intense desire and commitment. All right, so here what's saying that Krishna is like a chakora. He's a chakora, he's looking everywhere for the one subsistence that he has. And what's that subsistence? That subsistence is the prema of the gopis. And now that prema of the gopis has one form, tat priyata sudhakara tanum. That all the love of all the gopis has one manifestation, one form. It's like the compressed, the essential form of all the gopis. Right? She is the archetypal gopi. All of the love is there. So because all of the other gopis' love is there, therefore Krishna, who is avid, hungry for love, just like a chakora bird is always hungry for the light of the moon. But Krishna is always being attracted to Radha. So it's called anugata. He becomes anugata to Radha. So therefore, vandamahe radhikam. We offer our humble obeisances and offer our reverential prayers to this Radha. She is samasta mahita. She is the glory above. She is the combined glory of them all. Let's see. Did I put on a translation here? Let's just. Oh yeah, we have a translation here. Ooh, should I read it? Should I read it? I don't even know. Do I have time? Who gives a damn? If you're watching this far, if you're crazy enough to watch, what are the chances that you've watched this far? Probably minimal. But at any rate, let's just have a look here. Okay, so let's see what it says. So in this verse, a number of different verses from the Bhagavatam are referenced, which form a bit of the cornerstone of argumentation for the glories of Radha. Because Jiva Goswami has danced this dance, he has sung this song, he's done this before. In the Bhagavad Sandarbha, in the Krishna Sandarbha, even in Bhakti Sandarbha, of course, in the Priti Sandarbha, of course, he's going to talk about Madhura Rasa all over the place. So in the course of those argumentations for the Madhura Rasa, he also is explaining about the glory of Krishna's Shakti. And so he has to explain about Radha. So he's done that several times, like I said. And there's one book where he kind of compiles all his arguments together. It's called Radha Krishna Archana Deepika, Radha Damodar Archana Deepika, something like that. All right. First, Uddhava is, so the basic argument is what? All right, let's just have the basic. Jiva Goswami's argument, of course, is based on the Bhagavatam. So we have two kinds of arguments. One kind of argument is based on the Bhagavata Pramana. Even the arguments where you somehow find another meaning, alternative meaning, you're still taking Pramana from the Bhagavatam. And the other one is the Rasa. Okay. So now this particular argumentation is based on Pramana from the Bhagavatam. How's that? It's all based on a hierarchy. Who says what about whom? Right? If Shukadev says something, or if Uddhava says something, if Arjuna says something, people who say things in the Bhagavatam are given a lot of credence. Right? So Uddhava, especially here, is being given, he's a pramanic person. We're to believe in Pramana from Uddhava. What Uddhava says is strong. So this is going to be mentioned here, because he says here, first Uddhava is mentioned as the speaker of two verses that are referred to, 10, 47, 60 to 61, and then his own credentials are mentioned as per this verse spoken by Krishna himself. Right? So, no dhavo nvapi manyuno yadgunairana prabhu ato madvayunam lokam grahayan nihatishtatu. Uddhava is not in any way inferior to me, because he is never affected by the qualities of matter. Therefore, he should stay here in order to teach specific knowledge of me to the world. This is in the earlier part of the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. But this is not the only place. There are other places also. The verse then makes reference to Uddhava's famous panegyric glorifying the gopis in 10:47, 57 to 64. These verses are unique because there is no other such praise dedicated to any devotee by another devotee found in the Bhagavatam. So after staying in Vrindavan in the association of the cowherd folk, Uddhava is so impressed by the gopis' devotion that he glorifies them as no other devotees have ever been glorified in the Bhagavatam. Though he himself has been directly told by Krishna that he is his Atma, right? In the 11th canto, Krishna says, "You are my Atma, you are my very self." He glorifies the gopis, indicating their incomparable superior status in the spiritual realm. Okay, so this is about the Radha among the gopis. So first he glorifies the gopis, but then after glorifying the gopis, he glorifies specifically Radha. So after putting gopis on a pedestal, after showing just how that even Shri could not attain the glories of the gopis, that still, if you summarized all the gopis, if you could put it all together in one form, all the beauty, all the qualities, all the love, if you could put them in one place, that would be Radha. Uddhava glorified the gopis, saying that Lakshmi could never be on their level. Even though he is considered by Hari to be his equal, he made his obeisance to the dust of their feet. Among these gopis, we worship Radhika, the most glorious of them all, whose body is like the moon of love for Krishna, transforming him into a chakora bird, which pursues her everywhere to drink its rays. Aha, not too bad. Uddhava glorified the gopis, saying that Lakshmi could never ever be on their level. Even though Uddhava is considered by Hari to be his equal, he made his obeisance to the dust of their feet. And among these gopis, we worship Radhika, the most glorious of them all, Samasta Mahita, whose body is like the moon of love for Krishna, of the gopis' love for Krishna, I should say. Ta'asam, tat-priyata sudhakaratanum. Tat-priyata, tat-tasam. All right. So among these gopis, we worship Radhika, the most glorious of them all, whose body is like the moon of love for Krishna. I want to say their love for Krishna. It has to be the gopis' love. Transforming him. This is having the effect. This is also a big subject in the Priti Sandarbha. We'll be coming to that too. So the love of the gopi, the love of Radha transforms Krishna, turns him into a chakora. Right? So we just said previously, we were just saying about the verse that bhakti evainam nayati, bhakti evainam darshayati, bhakti vashaha purushaha, bhakti eva bhuyasi. So that little verse there saying how glorious bhakti is, because bhakti controls. Vashi kurvanti mam bhaktya satpuman satstriyo yata. Right? Just like a wife, she can control her husband through her devotion. He becomes dependent on her devotion. So it's the same with Krishna. He becomes devoted to the devotion. All right, then the last verse. All right, let's look at the last verse. The last verse is also a particular favorite. I know there are other interpretations than my interpretation of this verse, but I'm rather fond of my own interpretation. This is a rather different mantra. What's the meter again? This is a shorter meter. I don't put the name of this meter. Shalini meter. Okay, Shalini meter is a Trishtup. Is it Trishtup? It's not. It's a Jagati meter. It has 12 syllables to a line. All right. My mouth is a bit dry. I don't have any. All right. So prema yosau radhika krishna yugmam swanandena plavayitva sakhischa shashwad vishwang plavayan suprasiddha soyang buddhingna kasamidhang karotu. So this is because we have to remember that Snigdha-kanta and Madhu-kanta are standing there right in front of Radha and Krishna. So when they talk about this prema, they're talking about the Radha and Krishna that are in front of them, no? So prema yosa radhika Krishna yugmam swanandena plavayitva sakhischa Shashwad Vishwama Plavayana Suprasiddha Soyam Buddhingana Samidham Karotu. So for me, I can't help but think that this is a Gayatri mantra. So anybody who follows the Bhagavatam knows the importance of the Gayatri mantra and the relevance of the Gayatri mantra to the Bhagavatam, the word Dhimahi, which comes both right at the very beginning of the Bhagavatam and at the very end of the Bhagavatam. This word dhimahi, the object of meditation, this is generally speaking what we call Gayatri, the signal of the Gayatri mantra. Satyam parang dhimahi. That's the glorious Gayatri mantra of the Bhagavatam. Satyam parang dhimahi. What a great challenge, right? To say that we are glorifying the supreme truth. And to say that everything in this book is to establish the nature of the supreme truth. What is the supreme truth? How do we recognize the supreme truth? How do we attain the supreme truth? All these questions. Satyam parang dhimahi. You start with a mantra, the Gayatri mantra. You're initiated by reading the first verse of the Bhagavatam. You've been initiated actually into the Bhagavata Dharma, right? Satyam parang dhimahi. Now you heard the mantra, that's your mantra now. Satyam parang dhimahi. All right, so here we have, but what do you do with the Gayatri mantra? How does the Gayatri mantra end? Yeah. Tanno Dio prachodayat, right? How does it go? Om bhuvak swaha tat savitur varenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi tanno Dio yonah prachodayat Dio yonah prachodayat Dio yonah prachodayat. So prachodayat, that's the prayer. So what are you asking for? You're asking for, please God, oh, the God of light, right? Surya Narayan. So, oh God of light, please shine your rays upon me and grant me intelligence. Clarify my intelligence. Give impulse to my better intelligence. Give me willpower for the good. Right? Intelligence in the Indian concept does not just mean to know the difference between right and wrong, but it also means to have the courage to act on that. Knowledge is not just book learning, and it's obviously more than that. So to have real knowledge requires one to have faced the test of courage. So here is this verse now. So this is the prayer. So young buddhing nach samidhan karotu. So that's the same, the prachodayat of the Gayatri mantra. That Gayatri mantra. So now this is really an explanation of which Gayatri mantra, because this is the Gayatri mantra. It's obviously the Kama Gayatri mantra that's being explained here. I mean, why would Jiva Goswami even be talking about Gayatri mantras at all? So, Kamadevaya vidmehe pushpapanaya dhimahi tanno anangaha prachodayat. So there is anangaha. So of course, when we talk about anangaha and that, we're talking about love, right? We're talking about, yes, we're talking about madhura love. We're talking about love in the madhura rasa. But anyone who's worshipping Krishna with the Kama Gayatri mantra is in worshipping Krishna in the madhura rasa. That's why it said that Kama Bija, Kama Gayatri Jarupason. That's our Navina Madan. Vrindavanera Krishna Navina Madan. Kama Bija, Kama Gayatri Jar Upason. So here, that's what he's saying. So the prayer is that so yama buddhing naksamidhan karotu. So may that so yam. So we're going to find, what is that so yam that's being talked about? Well, we had that above. That was in the first line. Prema yosa. So yosa, we have these two. So because it's going to say asau prema. And now ayam prema. So there's a prema out there, asau prema. And then there's a ayam prema. which is the one that we're seeing here, manifest as Radha and Krishna. And the idea between the yaha and the saha, right, is that the two are going to be described in a little bit more detail. So the second one said that the saha, right, this prema that is manifest here in Radha and Krishna, may that prema inflame our intelligence. Buddhina samidham karotu. Anybody who's done a little bit of Sanskrit, karotu, load, sitya, third, the prathama purusha. Karotu, what? Buddhim samidham karotu. So samidham means inflamed, to become full of light. Turn the lights on of the intelligence. So that's what makes it a classical Gayatri mantra. So now what is the first part of the verse? So now we know that soyam, that's the punchline. It's asking for this kind of for this prema to inflame our intelligence. But now let's have a little bit more about the prema. What's this prema? Tell me about this prema. So prema yosau radhika krishna yugmang swanandena plavayitva sakischa shashwad vishwang plavayan suprasiddha soyam buddhing naksamidha grosu. It's a nice long one sentence, right? With a couple of participles. We've got first thing it says that plavayitva. So that's a causative. Plavayitva, inundate. It's a gerund, having inundated. So first of all, this prema with its ananda, swa anandena, with its own joy. Right? This prema has its own joy. So just see how once again, he's giving prema a separate life, a separate existence. So prema yosau radhika krishna yugam swanandena plavayatva. Radha and Krishna, they give themselves over. What's the meaning of the first verse of the Rasa Lila? He says, Yogamaya upasrita. Krishna took shelter of his Yogamaya. Viksha rantung manas chakre. Yogamaya upasrita. So in the first, when he rantum manas chakre, so when he had the mind, when he had a mind to enjoy, then the yoga maya, it was like he says, okay, I gotta go turn the TV on. If I want to watch a video on the TV or whatever, whatever you're watching on now, I don't know. By the time this gets across the airwaves, they'll be doing something entirely new, probably tattooed right into your upper eyelid or something like that. So prema yosau radhika krishna yugmam swanandena plavayatva. So that prema inundates Radha and Krishna with its own joy. And sakischa. Let's not forget the sakis. Very interesting that he mentions the sakis here. It seemed like such a philosophical verse. But yes, the sakis also, they're also getting inundated in this great deluge, this tsunami of prema. And then what? Shashwat Vishwam Plavayan. It's still going on. They're constantly deluging this universe. This universe. Suprasiddha. It's well known to everyone. May that prema give us intelligence. Well, I can't tell you, this is a very, very significant verse in my view. I think that this verse kind of takes us, beyond mythology, is what I was going to say. We really get the tattva here, because it's putting prema. So in a way, like we were saying, that prema, in order to be expressed, it has to take form. Without a form, prema has no meaning. But every form has to have some kind of meaning. Right? If the form has no meaning, then it will be lost. But the reason that Radha and Krishna survive, let's say, in the minds of men and women, of course, the reason that Radha and Krishna survive at all is because they represent something substantial from human experience. And that thing that they establish from human experience is love, erotic love. Love of a man for a woman and a woman for a man. So this verse seems to be equating. Now we do have it, right? We do know. There's so many things to be said here. I don't want to go on and on about it. But because we are talking about the Kama Gayatri mantra, why is Krishna being worshipped with the mantra for the God of love? What's the what possible meaning could we derive from that particular understanding that the mantra that we chant for Krishna doesn't even contain the name of Krishna in it? It's Kamadevaya. Vidmahe pushpabanaya dhimahi tanano anangaha prachodayat. And the whole point about prema, anangaha, his name is Ananga. He has no form, no body. Maybe it's because Shiva burned him out of anger. I don't know. But whatever the case, he's been given that name, Ananga, having no body. He's a nobody. So that prema yo Radhika Krishna yugmam swanandena plavayitva sakischa. So it's like think of it as being like the Ganga coming out from the spiritual ocean, the spiritual sky, and piercing into the material world. Prema yo Radhika Krishna yugmam swanandena plavayitva sakischa shashvad vishvam plavayan suprasiddha soyam buddhinaha samidhang karotu. That love, it is well known, first inundates the divine pair of lovers, Radhika and Krishna, with its own bliss, and their girlfriends too, and then eternally engulfs the entire universe. May this very love here inflame our intelligence. Aha! I think this is wonderful. All right, that's all I'm going to say for today. Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda. Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda. Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda. Krishna Govinda Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda Jai Jai Shyam Sundar Madana Mohan Vrindavana Chandra Jai Jai Radha Raman Ras Vihari Sri Gokulananda Jai Jai Radha Kanta Radha Vinod Shri Radha Govinda Jai Jai Radha Raseshwari Vinodini Bhanu Kula Chandra Jai Jai Lalita Vishakayadi Jata Sakhi Vrinda Jai Jai Sirupa Manjari Adi Manjari Ananga Jai Jai Purnamasi Kundalata Jaya Vira Vrinda Tomra Kripa Kori Deo He Jugal Charanaravinda Deho Jugal Charanaravinda Deho Jugal Charanaravinda Deho Jugal Charanaravinda Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda